We'll start this evening with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the United States of America and Israel are settler colonial states that have embraced the erasure of the original peoples of the land through the violence of resource extraction, environmental desecration, land theft, displacement, family separation, and genocide. We acknowledge the through line of settler colonialism here on Turtle Island and around the world, and its continuing impact on the land that Indigenous peoples have stewarded for more than 12,000 years. We have benefited from that system. We live in the richest country that has ever existed in the history of the world, a society made rich by the genociding of people and the theft of their lands, a society that built its wealth upon the backs of enslaved Africans and continues to enslave Black and Brown people at wildly disproportionate rates in the modern day industrial carceral state. We say the land acknowledgement to center an opportunity to reflect, unlearn, decolonize, and grapple with these truths, and to put that wisdom that we've earned to work. Today, and for the past 8 months, we have had all eyes on Palestine. We recognize Palestinians as Indigenous peoples with an irrefutable connection and right to their ancestral lands. We recognize Israel as an illegal settler colonial state that has inflicted a permanent, hostile, and belligerent occupation and apartheid and continues to inflict immeasurable, incomprehensible violence upon Palestinian people. At this event and every day, in the resistance we build with community, with one another in this uprising, we demand the US government divest from death and destruction. When Palestine is free, so are we. Assalamu alaikum, bienvenidos, hello, good evening, and welcome. I'd like to give you the run of show tonight. We'll hear from tonight's guests, including Susan Abulhawa, Jenan Matari, and Kshama Sawant. We'll be fundraising for this campaign to end genocide, and we will end with a few minutes of Q&A. Today, in the midst of chaos and converging existential crises, and the violent manifestations of the empire's fear and loathing, in their shutting down of the last vestiges of a false democracy, in their continual assault on people and planet, we gather, we resist, and we aren't going anywhere. My name is Kelly Merrill, and I have the great privilege of serving as a deputy campaign manager for presidential candidate Dr. Jill Stein. One of the most powerful aspects of this work is to meet the incredible people doing the work of collective liberation, and we will not rest until we are free from these systems of oppression. But first, I'd like to introduce our host for this evening. She is a fierce defender of human rights and the rights of the planet. She is a comrade, mentor, and one of the most courageous truth tellers I know. It is my honor to turn it over to one of the great leaders of the resistance, Green Party presumptive nominee and presidential candidate, Dr. Jill Stein. Jill.
Hello, everyone. Just dealing with a few little technicalities here. We're on the road and operating out of wonderful space made available by fellow activists in the struggle here. So pardon us while we make a few adjustments, but it's really a great honor to be here tonight and to have with us such amazing guests. And I want to just consult Kelly as our master of ceremonies here. Roughly, what's our time frame for an intro? I want to be sure that we leave plenty of time for our amazing guests tonight. Shall I just set the stage?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Set the stage. Yeah.
All right, great. So, tonight's rally, we're calling it Strike the Empire Back, because the empire is very much doubling down right now in its pursuit of genocide, endless war, oligarchy, the growing fascist state, and so on. And right now, the current crisis around the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, which is, a terrible and troubling event, again, a symptom of the violence that really pervades our society at all levels, including our political system. One of the lessons is certainly that no one is safe. No one is safe from the violence of our system. And we see that violence, perpetrated overseas. We see that violence perpetrated here at home, economically, in just the actual physical violence and threats to safety in our communities at all levels, particularly low-income communities, communities of color, communities subject to harassment, bias, prejudice, xenophobia. Violence is very much the name of the game here. And, we've recently now seen this at the highest levels of government, in the face of Secret Service protection with an assassin who was some 400 feet from Secret Service, which is supposed to be the best protection one can ever have. And one of the lessons here, I think, that it drives home is that, the arms race, the arms race, and militarizing our society is not a protection. We have to address the underlying drivers of this violence, and that's not particularly our focus tonight, but that's always part of our message, that we need a society in pursuit of peace. We cannot have peace without justice, and all of these are really a state of emergency for us, and we're reminded of that in the very unsettling and disturbing current events going on. I want to focus tonight, on the ways in which empire is doubling down to prevent and to silence its to prevent political competition, voices that represent our urgent needs, our need for jobs, for job security, for decent wages, for housing, when 50% of Americans, not just renters, but all Americans now, according to a recent Harvard study, 50%, half of all people in this country are spending between 30 and 50% of their income just keeping a roof over their heads, just one or two paychecks away from evictions for renters in particular. The crisis of healthcare, the crisis of debt, rampant debt, the crisis of the climate, with some 140 million Americans facing serious heat advisories now, with working people facing just unbearable conditions and without protections against that heat, without guarantees of water or time off or cooling breaks, without air conditioning, and that injustice for workers in the face of climate is a global phenomenon, and climate injustice is happening in this country, and it's happening really all around the world. And in the face of these crises, we have empire spending half of our congressional resources on endless wars, spending recently a $61 billion package to maintain the tragic and horrible, unwinnable proxy war in Ukraine, which could readily have been avoided, could easily have been stopped, and in particular, another $24 billion being spent on Israel. And that package followed just the incredible, actually it preceded the latest explosion of violence related to Rafah, and subsequently after Rafah, just, a horrific, unhinged, violent series of events from Israel that I won't take the time to enumerate right now, but one day is just a greater crisis than the preceding. And I do want to mention, however, that after this outburst of unbelievable savagery on the part of Israel, you had the U.S. Congress then appropriating another $18 billion worth of fighter jets, rewarding Israel for its just unthinkable brutality. And so we are a voice of resistance. The American people are resisting. We know that the vast majority of Americans oppose the genocide and the crisis in Israel that Israel is inflicting. And we very much need to end it. The US has the power to end it. Joe Biden has the power to end it. And we need to be in this election to bring this genocide front and center, not only on voting day, but every day between now and then. And by getting on the ballot, we ensure that there will be a very strong and powerful voice that is challenging empire, challenging the genocide, challenging crushing inequality and climate collapse. We are the only campaign. We are now on the ballot for a majority of voters. We are the only real choice that is anti-war, anti-genocide, pro-worker, and on behalf of the climate emergency. We are the only such choice. So to cut to the chase, we see the empire now doubling down to silence its competition. And the empire in particular has hired its army of lawyers to throw us off the ballot. They have advertised for with job postings for managers of their infiltrators and saboteurs, basically, and spies. So they're conducting these infiltration campaigns right now. And then most recently, they have essentially put our matching funds on hold. $270,000 that they owed us, which they were to have begun payments for almost 2 weeks ago now, money that has in part already been spent getting on the ballot, making us, in fact, the sole choice already on the ballot for a majority of voters. And so the FEC, in a nutshell, said, you have qualified for that money. We are about to send it to you. And then 9 minutes later, we got a second email saying, oh, but it looks like Treasury can't release the money. Just somehow by coincidence, Treasury cannot release the money. We have just learned due to the fact that Congress appropriated much of the funding kind of in the dark when no one was looking in March, just before we announced that we had qualified, that we had met the criteria for matching funds. And it was public knowledge that we were seeking this in order to empower this challenge to empire. Just before we met that criteria, Congress very quietly raided the matching funds fund, some $400+ million. They raided it, leaving just $17 million in the fund. This is taxpayer money. When you pay your income tax, you have a checkoff box. You can check off that $3 contribution so that we can have publicly funded candidates who do not have to sell their soul to corporate America to fund their campaigns. So this is absolutely outrageous. And it's very important that, that we be able to fight back, that we raise this funding and not allow empire to stop us in our tracks. They're saying, oh, maybe we'll get the money later after the Democratic and Republican Party conventions. Why the conventions? Because they want to ask the Democratic and Republican candidates if they want to run on public money. What a joke. Are they going to run on $17 million? These are billion-dollar campaigns. If you run on public money, you cannot accept any private money. So are they going to run in the general election on public funds? Absolutely not. It's simply ludicrous that that is being used. Funding, but that's release that money. The nominated and the nominee declined public funding. So what a joke. This is why it's really critical that we be able to stand up and say we are going to move ahead. We're not going to allow them to interrupt our ballot drive, which seems to be what the goal is here. So that's why we are striking back at empire, which is doubling down to silence its competition. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for being that challenge to empire. Thank you for insisting that we have an America and a world that works for all of us. including our political system, which needs to be able to reflect the urgent and really compelling needs of the American people. Thank you so much. I'll turn it back to Kelly at this point. Or shall I go ahead and introduce?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, wonderful. I'm just pulling over our introductions here. And so I'm first going to bring on Janan Matari, who is an award-winning Palestinian storyteller, a TEDx speaker, a CEO of her own publicity organization, Zaytun, and a mother to her energetic toddler and snuggly pup. After 11 years in public relations and media, she's now dedicating her life's work to challenging the narrative of the Muslim, Arab, and indigenous communities by the mainstream media. So it's really been an honor and a pleasure to have met you, Janan, and to be working with you. And thank you so much for bringing your vision and your talent here to tonight's meeting.
Thank you for having me again. Thank you for the intro. It's an honor to be here with you again, and to help with your campaign. For those who don't know me, my name is Janan. I am a Palestinian writer and producer. My work always centers Palestine, so I think my moment to speak here will probably do the same, of course, in the context of Jill's campaign. And so I'll tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm here, and why I hope that at the end of this rally that everybody will support Jill, both with getting ballot access in a state if she is not on the ballot in your state, with donations, and with your vote and your inner circle's votes. I am going to remind everyone that Jill is the only viable presidential candidate who is anti-war, anti-genocide, pro-worker that is on the ballot. She is the only third-party option. And it's important that we, who are also anti-war, anti-genocide, pro-worker, pro-climate, understand that that is our reality. And I've said it before, and I will say it again. I am first generation born and raised in the United States. I was raised by Palestinian parents who taught me that voting as an American meant that I was always going to have my back up against a wall and would have to make a decision that felt like it was best for the country that I was living in, that there was never going to be a presidential candidate that was good for the United States and good for Palestine, because that was just our reality as a Palestinian family. Jill is a candidate that is good for Palestine and good for the United States. And she has proved that for all of the ways that society has tried to convince us that Palestine is bad for politics or bad for business, that it can be your guiding light, and it can be a force for good, and that you can get people to care about something that is happening thousands of miles away from them and understand that they are connected to it, that we are all connected to Palestine, that we have a part to play in the oppression and the genocide in Palestine, and that we also have a part in stopping what we're seeing and what's happening. So Jill is good for the planet. She is good for people. And I think after what we saw recently at the Trump rally, we are all in a place where we are over living in a world filled with violence, and we have to continue to reimagine a world that we deserve, one that is cared for, one that is protected, one that isn't being held hostage by a two-party system that is keeping us in this world of violence, and believe that we can actually get to a place where we have politicians who care about us and care about the world and care about our impact on the rest of the world. And so it's not enough to just envision this. We have to believe that we can get there, and then we have to do the work to do it, to get there. So that's, you know, what we said before in terms of how to make this presidency a reality. It's putting our money in areas where our money is needed. It's getting feet on the ground. It's getting bodies on the ground. It's, advocating for Jill's ballot access in your state if she's not there yet. It's getting your loved ones to believe in Jill's ability to become president and to use their vote to get her there. So it's everyday work. It's a lot of work. We've been convinced over the last 100 of years that a third party candidate isn't something that's really possible, but call me naive. These last 9 months have really made me believe that the rest of this world thinks that that is possible and wants to make it possible. And so we have to keep doing the work to get there. We deserve a better world, and we have to do whatever it takes to get us there, because this is not just about Americans and American politics. We have such a huge ripple effect on the rest of this planet, and we are not just voting for ourselves. We are literally voting for the rest of the world. So I hope that everybody can really internalize that and see how important this election is and how much power we actually have, and really believe that we can take it back.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Janan. I see that my signal here is a
I think we kind of lost Joe.
A few tech issues are good.
Jill, you're on mute.
Jill, unmute yourself.
mute.
There you go.
Let's see if we're working.
You're on.
Okay, sorry again for the little technical snafus. When you don't have a, what shall we say, an ample campaign budget, you have kind of a, you're on a skeleton crew all the time. But Janan, I want to thank you so much for those really wonderful thoughts, how we are all interconnected, how Gaza is belongs to all of us. As Gaza goes, we all go, because Gaza, is the future of human rights. If there is a future, is the future of international law. If there is to be any international law, is, what we say against the torture and murder of children on an industrial scale. And if we say this is okay in Gaza, get ready, because, it's not going to stop
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah, it's coming home.
So thank you so much for your beautiful words. And we look forward to our continuing dialogue. Thank you so very much. I'm going to turn now to another wonderful, inspired Palestinian American. And I look forward to meeting her, because we've communicated a little bit by text, but things have been so crazy here on the campaign trail that we have not been able to connect yet. But I'm hoping, Susan, that we can actually meet soon. I'm going to be coming to your neighborhood and would love to be able to meet. So I'm going to just give a little quick bio introduction and then turn it over to Susan. So Susan Abulhawa is a Palestinian writer, best known for her debut novel, Mornings in Jenin, which is an international bestseller translated into 32 languages. The reach and the sales of this book made Susan one of the most widely read Palestinian novelists in the world, and her subsequent novels, The Blue Between Sky and Water and Against the Loveless World, were likewise international bestsellers. Susan is the executive director of the Palestine Writers Literature Festival, which was at the heart of the recent congressional hearings against the University of Pennsylvania, undeservedly. of course, and she is the founder and director of an all-volunteer children's charity. She's an activist, a prolific writer of political analysis and commentary. And she went to Gaza twice since the beginning of the genocide, spending considerable time in the southern and middle Gaza this year. So I'm really grateful to Susan for lending her voice to our collective effort here to stop this genocide in its tracks at the same time that we confront empire here and build a resistance on behalf of democracy for the long haul. Take it away, Susan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill. It is, it's a real pleasure and an honor to endorse you for President of the United States and to support your candidacy through the Green Party. I think by now everyone understands or should understand that Israel is committing a genocide for everyone to see. And what's happening in Gaza is not just another issue to consider in the upcoming election. It's not just a foreign policy matter, nor is it a complicated conflict that's happening somewhere far away. I want to emphasize that the genocide in Gaza is the issue of our time, both globally and domestically. And what's happening in Gaza is literally the Holocaust of our time, broadcast in the full glory of imperial blood and gore and greed and sense of supremacy and sense of entitlement and the willingness to do the unspeakable in order to consolidate more power. Because nothing is ever enough for the brokers of this horror. These merchants of death and war are the same brokers of our domestic miseries as well. The endless footage of broken and burnt and mutilated, shredded and crushed and buried alive bodies that are live streamed to our screens daily, despite the efforts to quell or sabotage information from getting to all of us, is being done in our name. And it's being done with money from your daily wages, from your labor, your creativity, your sweat and tears and thoughts and time away from your families. Gaza is quite literally the culmination of decades of a cruel ruling class who've been sucking the lifeblood of the world dry. They have been pilfering our pockets and your wages. What we pay in taxes, ostensibly for the public good, is siphoned away from our public welfare. It's siphoned away from our schools and our healthcare, from our general collective well-being, and then it's laundered through these endless wars, through this endless exploitation of defenseless people and also defenseless animals, and to their unbridled pollution and destruction of our planet in order to keep extracting more and more and more. None of the corporate looting of our society and nearly every society around the world abated during Biden's tenure or any Democrat's tenure before him in our lifetime, except maybe JF Kennedy. And frankly, there's just no difference between the blue and the red. They are two faces of the same coin. Both of them are ruled and they're funded by the same cabal of billionaires. Most of them are friends who ensure that their bottom line interests are served no matter who's in office. And all they have to do is to keep us locked into a two-party system, each election giving us two evils to choose from, coining that lesser of two evils doctrine. It's a demoralizing non-choice. And recently, when Hillary Clinton was confronted with the fact that the American people are increasingly sick and tired of what is ultimately an undemocratic two-party system, she laughed and she smugly suggested that the American people should, quote, get over yourself. And frankly, I think we should get over Clinton and all she represents of this treacherous system that ultimately prioritizes the interests of the ruling donor class, not us. I think we need to get over the Democratic Party and the Republican Party alike. I think we should get over their bold-faced lies that they tell us to our faces, the ways that they gaslight us into believing that we're better off than we were 4 years ago, every 4 years, even though we know we're actually worse off in every way that matters. Nothing has significantly improved for the average American family under either party. Wages are stagnant, inflation is up, and the wealthiest Americans are doubling, tripling, and even quadrupling their incomes. We've seen our public schools shutter across the country, replaced with for-profit schools that have done little more than create a new class of billionaires that are feeding off of public funds meant for education. And that's just an example. Americans can barely pay their rent and often have to choose between buying food or medicine. And on top of that, on top of this misery, we are forced to watch a bloody extermination of a defenseless indigenous people with our money. If we're not struggling to keep our heads above water, we're lining up en masse to buy junk and more junk that they convince us will make us happy. We line up because the same people that are selling us this junk had already worked to engineer an alienated, individualistic, disconnected public that's endlessly gathering pharmaceuticals, crap we don't need, and other fixes to fill the holes in our lives, where in fact community and family and love and connection to the natural world are meant to be. I recently conducted a mini study of the death toll in Gaza. Before I became a writer, I was actually a scientist. And I used those skills to estimate the actual number of Palestinians killed in Gaza, both directly and indirectly, because I knew, as anyone who's been to Gaza knows, that the stagnant 40,000 people killed was too low. And the results of that study were published, and the estimate was between 193,248 people killed to 514,464 people killed, directly or indirectly by Israeli fire, or indirectly by Israel's withholding of vital medication, through their destruction of water treatment facilities and the prevention of clean water from entering, thereby leading to rampant disease, by injuries and infections that lead to sepsis and death, through intentional starvation, and the list goes on. Initially, a lot of people dismissed the report when it was published, disbelieving the numbers could be so high because it seemed inconceivable to kill 10% of a population in the span of 9 months. But just 10 days after my article was published, The Lancet, one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world, published their own estimate, which corroborated the numbers I reported on the lower end. They gave a conservative estimate of 186,000 people killed. And frankly, and time will tell that this is actually a gross underestimation as well. Not that it really should matter, because what we've seen already is grotesque enough. And no matter what the numbers are, what we're witnessing in Gaza is an expression of the lowest human impulses for cruelty, for mercilessness, for vengeance and greed and theft of a principally defenseless indigenous population that has lived under Israel's boot for 76 years. So when people go to the polls, if they plan to vote for Biden, they'll have to walk over hundreds of thousands of Palestinian bodies to get to the ballot, as well as thousands of Sudanese bodies and Congolese bodies. And those are just other wars that we're supporting that I haven't gotten into. You'll have to step over all of their bodies in order to vote for the man who has been funding and acquiescing to it all. With Dr. Stein on the ballot, we have a chance to vote for the world that we want. Just as Janan said, for something that is hopeful, something that is more gentle, for a world that can regenerate itself without the rain of bombs and the toxic oil and waste and land and rivers and oceans and skies. You'll have a chance to vote out of hope instead of out of fear. And frankly, I'm not only speaking to the left, but also to people on the right. I think a lot of people supporting Donald Trump are doing so because they think he will, quote, drain the swamp or some other version of purging this predatory system that we're forced to participate in. They're misguided, of course, in thinking another rich, entitled demagogue could ever actually care about them. But Dr. Stein offers them as well a real path toward upending this system that's feeding on our lives instead of supporting us and nurturing our young people. And let me just say, as a closing remark, that with Dr. Stein on the ballot, we have a chance to make it clear to the ruling elite and the corporate class that we are over them. We're not getting over ourselves as Hillary Clinton would have us do. We're getting over them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. Really powerful, beautiful words. And, I feel like you are shining a light on my own, deepest inner thoughts and political intentions and vision. And thank you so much for all that you do. So much of what you said is just so right on. How, Gaza is the Holocaust of our times. It is kind of a microcosm of the evil dysfunction of empire that pervades every area of our lives. And there is no fixing this without also fixing Gaza. And, it's so unbelievably urgent and so compelling that the bombs could stop right now with a phone call. And to me, it just underscores everything that we're doing. This is why we have to get on the ballot. This is why we have to politically challenge empire, challenge Biden, challenge Trump. They will all do the same things. And if they are replaced by other people, they will also do the same things. This is definitely about getting over the duopoly, getting over empire, and we are over it. And I think fundamentally this is about getting over powerlessness and getting over the, the propaganda that tries to persuade us that we don't have power. We do have power. And thank you for those very powerful words that, remind us of the power that we have and the moral imperative that we have to stand up now for all of our sake and our children's sake.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. People sometimes ask me, why am I a candidate now? And, why am I subjecting myself to the abuse that you always get when you're a candidate, especially in these very vicious and desperate times? And, my response is always that, well, my kids don't have a future, unless all kids have a future and their kids and all that. And I think we are at a point now where it is very hard to envision, our continuing civilization, our continuing world under the conditions that it's now being run, that is under conditions of empire and the violence that pervades this world. And it, I think so many of us are in that position now where we're really ready to stand up and make sacrifices to change our trajectory, because it doesn't last long. It is, it's like the motor has cut out in the airplane. The airplane is going into a tailspin, and it really requires emergency measures on behalf of all of us, because Gaza is sort of the essence of this system that is in a massive genocidal failure right now. So thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to turn to our third and final speaker here, who has been, for me, a real role model and a real example of how one stands up to challenge empire and the political system right here in our communities, in the cities where we live, as part of challenging that broader empire on a global scale. So I'm talking, of course, about Kshama Sawant, and currently she's with Workers Strike Back, a very powerful organization that is mobilizing working people to actually assert our power. Kshama is one of the most important political figures in the working class political movement over the last 15 years. Kshama spearheaded the fight for the $15 minimum wage and sparked a nationwide movement that was ultimately thwarted at the federal level by the Biden administration, who had promised they would support a $15 minimum wage and then chose not to do that. Kshama chose not to run for re-election to the Seattle City Council District 3 seat that she held for over a decade, after defeating a billionaire-led recall effort. And instead, she has co-founded a new organization, Workers Strike Back, a political party dedicated to building a working class solidarity to resist the politics of the ownership class. So I'm very much looking forward to joining Workers Strike Back at the inaugural Zoom that will be held next Sunday, July 21st. And I encourage everyone to come out and register for that and help us, be a world in which workers can strike back in the same way that we are striking back against empire here tonight. So please welcome Kshama Sawant. Take it away, Kshama.
Thank you so much, Jill, and thanks to everybody who spoke before me, Kelly, Janan, and Susan, and yourself, Jill. As a socialist and as an anti-war activist, and as somebody who has, as Jill said, spent a long time fighting for working people, I'm so happy to join Jill Stein in the campaign this evening. I think it's incredibly clear to most working class and young people that we desperately need an alternative to Biden and Trump, that nothing is going to change on the basis of supporting these two warmongering parties of the billionaire class. And I think it's really important that we have a strong alternative in this election, that there's a campaign independent of these two corporate parties that's consistently fighting against the genocidal war on Gaza, that the same campaign is also fighting for working class people and for Medicare for all, a $25 an hour minimum wage, canceling student debt, making college free for all, and all the other things that can make a real difference in the lives of working class people, things that working people and young people want to fight for. I think it's very important that Jill is running and giving us all a real alternative. Many ordinary people right now, including a lot of young people, are considering not voting at all or voting for RFK, who is another millionaire warmonger and who has publicly rejected even the call for a ceasefire, or voting for Trump, as Susan said, because they mistakenly think that he's the guy to drain the swamp. I think all of these options would be a mistake. We need to fight for the strongest vote for a left alternative in this otherwise disastrous presidential election. Jill has stood consistently against the war and even got arrested for doing so. She's taking a stand in running again, knowing full well, as she just said, all the shit that is going to be thrown at her campaign and at her personally. It takes guts, and I think she's running a principled campaign. I am a revolutionary socialist, as I have never hid, and no doubt Jill and I have our political differences, but it's been my experience that when someone has the guts to fight for working people against the kind of vicious opposition that Jill is facing from the Democratic Party, that is something to be supportive of and to be proud to be supporting. Look at the crisis of the capitalist system right now, the carnage in Gaza, the disastrous cost of living crisis. Look at the spectacle of the Democratic Party, Biden refusing to step aside despite growing pressure by influential people in his own party, Politicians putting their ego above everything else in these times. Even New York State having become now a battleground state as a result of the determination of Biden and his people to ram his candidacy down everyone's throat. This has been the most undemocratic Democratic primary in decades, and that's saying a lot. But it's not surprising because it really should be called the undemocratic party. That's, of course, not to say the Republicans are any better. Trumpism is genuinely dangerous, but it is the ongoing betrayals of the Democrats that's led to the rise of the right wing. The Tea Party came out of the betrayals of Obama. The danger of Trump 2.0 came out of Biden's first term and his abandonment of things like the $15 minimum wage, as Jill mentioned, public health care, the end of COVID era expansion of child tax credit, which exponentially increased child poverty, and of course, his strike breaking against the railroad workers. And Biden is the warmonger in chief, backing not one, but two brutal wars to the hilt. The Democrats are the best builders of Trumpism. There is no way to reform the Democratic Party. Working people need a party of our own. Trump was already looking to have increasing chances of winning. Then the debate happened, and now the assassination attempt. Trump himself and the right wing are undoubtedly further emboldened. And it is so important for us to build the left in a strong way. Even if Biden is replaced, anyone who takes his place in the Democratic Party would carry on the same agenda, thoroughly pro-genocidal war and thoroughly anti-worker. Trump is dangerous. If he is elected, we will need to build a powerful movement to fight back against him. Building that movement begins now, whether we are ultimately fighting Trump or a Democrat in the White House. We need to build an independent working class movement and a global anti-war movement. Working people need to urgently get organized. And the fact is that working and young people are looking for avenues to fight back. Look at what happened last year. American workers led 33 major strikes last year, the most in more than 2 decades. Nearly 500,000 workers participated in major strikes, defined as involving 1,000 workers or more. We need to build on that, but we cannot do that without political organizing independent of the Democrats and Republicans, because as long as the labor leadership and left organizations are tied to the Democrats, it will not work. And even worse, is when leaders like Sean O'Brien, who is the president of the Teamsters, end up embracing Trump. We need an alternative to all this. And look at AOC and Bernie Sanders. They totally betrayed working people on everything. And now, when even George Clooney, who is no radical, is saying Biden needs to go, there you have AOC and Bernie Sanders and the squad shilling for Biden. I mean, it's just shameful. None of this is working. We need independent working class political organizing rooted in mass movements on the streets and the workplaces. And that needs to happen alongside the work we need to do this year, which is to understand that if we end up adopting this agenda of lesser evilism, where we say, let's support the Democrat every 4 years, it doesn't work. The independent anti-war, pro-working class politics needs to begin now, right now, during the presidential election year. And in fact, there's no path for the anti-war movement unless we have mass movements that shed their illusions to the Democrats and Republicans. I mean, that was needed in order to end the Vietnam War. It was mass movements on the streets, labor strike actions by millions of rank and file people who had shed their illusions in the establishment as a whole. What we expect from both these billionaire-backed parties is more war, especially in the era of the new Cold War. We expect more climate crisis, as speakers have already said. That is why it is a strategic necessity for our movements that we fight for the strongest possible vote for Jill Stein this year. And that's exactly the reason, the need to build a strong left, build a strong working class movement is why, alongside other socialists, I co-founded the Worker Strike Back National Movement last year. As Jill said, after having held our historic 10 years of socialist office on the Seattle City Council, winning the first major city $15 an hour minimum wage, a wage, by the way, which is now at $20 and is the nation's highest minimum wage, and winning the Amazon tax to fund affordable housing. I mean, let's contrast this record to what happens with the Democratic Party. And Worker Strike Back is fighting for many of the same things that Jill Stein's campaign is fighting for: $25 an hour minimum wage, Medicare for all, union jobs for all. And we're also saying that we need a new party for working people, and that we also need a fight against discrimination and oppression. And needless to say, Worker Strike Back is absolutely against the genocidal war on Gaza. And in fact, we are calling for an end to the war, an immediate ceasefire, an end to US military funding to the Israeli state, instead funding free 4-year college for all. And as Jill said, please join our event on July 21st. Maybe somebody here can post a link to that, but basically you can go to workersstrikeback.org, find the link. Please register for that event. We're going to have Jill Stein with us, and we're going to talk about what is the strategy going forward. And the most important thing that we'll be doing there, aside from endorsing Jill Stein, we'll be having a vote on that in Worker Strike Back, because we're a democratic organization. But alongside that, we're also going to be beginning to build for the Democratic National Convention rally of Worker Strike Back, which Jill will also be speaking at. And I'm so proud to be here with you, Jill. Thank you so much, and solidarity with everyone.
Thank you so much, Kshama. Really powerful words. Thank you for all your work. And I absolutely agree. We can no longer call it the Democratic Party. In fact, I suggest we call it the anti-democratic party, because it's not just undemocratic, it's at war with democracy itself, as it is, with our campaign, as the competition that it is terrified of. And it's the Democratic Party's war against us, I think, is a badge of honor, and it really underscores why we absolutely have to fight it and get over it, as Susan was saying. And it's very exciting, Kshama, as you point to 33 major strikes in the past year. There is such a mobilization right now, and as Empire is doubling down, we are rising up, and there is an uprising in full swing. It badly needs a coordinated political expression, and I think it's important to look to the example of France. France, where the right wing was expected to prevail in a very kind of neo-fascist government. And what happened was that the parties of the left got together after having pursued their own trajectories for, really recent history. They decided to coordinate, and they ran a coordinated campaign and actually prevailed over the right wing. And I think there's a real challenge to us, to all of the parties of the left right now, to look at how we can leverage that kind of solidarity right now in this election, because there will be 3 pro-genocide, pro-war, anti-worker, anti-climate campaigns on the ballot. They will be splitting the pro-war, pro-genocide vote 3 ways. We actually have a potential fighting chance to stand up, to unify the climate justice movement, the worker justice movement, the anti-war movement, and the anti-genocide movement. This is where the majority of Americans are, we know, on every one of those issues. This is what the American people are demanding. If we can get on the ballot, we actually have a fighting chance here. And I know there's a lot of discussion about, well, how is the left going to sort out here? At the end of the day, we are going to be the one left campaign that actually is a choice that can truly contest for power against empire. And I think it's really important to talk in a bigger way about how can we seize this moment, because who knows if we'll be around, if the nuclear weapons will not have, have detonated by then, and the climate crisis will not have, broken up the, some of the major ice sheets and caused just incredible chaos, which is on its way. It's just a question of when, not to mention, the genocide that is just out of control right now, not only in Gaza, as Susan pointed out, but in many other areas of the world as well, propelled by US foreign policy. So, the emergency is here and now, and I'm very much looking forward to being a part of the Workers Strike Back launch event. And I'm really looking forward to exploring ways that we can collaborate for left solidarity right now in this election, to actually seize the moment in this very perfect storm for political transformation. Thank you so much, Kshama, for bringing your voice here tonight. And I look forward to our ongoing collaboration. Thank you so very much. at this point, I want to bring on Jason Call, our campaign manager, to help us raise the resources that we urgently need, because we want to translate this momentum, this resolve, this envisioning that we're doing tonight into getting actual traction and ensuring that we can meet the challenge of the moment, which is to get on the ballot. This $270,000 that the Department of Treasury decided to withhold, who knows if and when they will make it available. We need to get over the duopoly and fully claim the power that we have. And to do that, we are a very low budget, extremely, low rent campaign. And what we have to pay for right now are these ballot access campaigns, so that we can in fact be on the ballot, not just for whatever it is, 65% of voters, something like that, but for 100% of voters. We want to be a challenge that Empire cannot, pretend, they cannot wish us out of existence. We need to be in their faces and on their backs every moment, so that the issues we represent will be front and center in this election. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason to lead the way here on our fundraising drive. And again, thank you so much to everyone for being here tonight.
Thanks, Jill. And I just want to say what an honor and a pleasure it has been listening to Janan and Susan and Kshama, who I have known for some time now here in the Seattle area and have supported, even though I'm not a Seattle resident. I've been down with actions in the Seattle area over the last decade in support of Kshama and her efforts. So it's great to see her here, and we look forward to the Workers' Strike Back event next weekend. I was at the very first Workers' Strike Back meeting. It was a little over a year ago now. I think it was in April of 2023 at the University of Washington campus. I was very proud to join that and be a contributor there. But right now, as Jill said, our campaign is, we hate to use the word struggling, but the reality is the FEC and the Treasury Department. I really don't want to blame the FEC itself too much. This is really a Treasury Department decision to withhold these funds under what is really very suspicious circumstances. I want people to understand that the Treasury Department is a politicized cabinet department under the Biden administration. And the decision that they are making is egregious. There's no doubt in my mind, and I'm not going to speak for the campaign, but there's no doubt in my mind that the decision was made to slow us down, just like they are slowing us down by filing a legal challenge against us in Nevada, which we have hired legal counsel, and we are meeting their challenge. We are likely to face similar legal challenges in Washington State, where we just submitted signatures, plenty of signatures to be approved, but understand that these legal challenges are not about necessarily winning them. They are about draining our resources and slowing down our momentum. Same thing in Ohio. We have submitted what we know are a well over the top good amount of signatures to be on the ballot in Ohio, and we expect the Democrats to file an injunction against us there. All of these legal challenges will take money. And we have to understand that we can't not respond to a legal challenge. If we do not respond to a legal challenge with the Democratic Party that has unlimited resources, we will automatically lose that challenge. So we have to hire lawyers, and we have to meet those legal challenges. It cost us $20,000 to hire a lawyer in Nevada to meet the challenge there, where the Secretary of State certified us, said our signatures were good. We were way over the top. And again, this is not about whether they are going to win that case. It is about making sure that they take money out of our coffer. So what we are doing here is a fundraiser so that we can, and I see the emojis there, the shock look emojis. Yeah, absolutely right. The Democrats they know they've got a serious challenge on their hand. They know that they have been failing on policy, and that we are bringing the policy that the people, the working people, and marginalized communities want to see to help them through the future here. The people are tired of the genocide. They are tired of the low wages. They are tired of rent going through the roof. They are tired of food going through the roof. And childcare, and still being trapped in student debt, and a healthcare system that is not meeting the needs of a good third of our population and some of the poorest and most struggling among us. And so those are the things that we are standing for. The Democratic Party knows that our message appeals to a lot of people who are within right now their own ranks. And if they recognize that they have another and a better option, the Democrats are really fear our challenge. So they're doing everything that they can to slow us down. So here we are at this fundraiser. And I do want to remind everybody that this is a fundraiser, and we are counting on you to help us build back what the Democratic Party is draining out of us in the most, unclean and egregious ways. They have unlimited resources, and they know that our resources, both time and money, are finite. So that's why they're doing this. So please, if you can, I'm going to give you the big maximums, that if you can donate $3,300, and I always clarify that that's not something I could do. I'm a working class person, but if you have a bank account and you feel like you want to help us do what we can to save our momentum and have a real challenge to Empire in the future, then $33 is the maximum contribution for the primary. And then once we move into the general election, you could donate another $33. So if you're able to make that maximum donation, we would certainly appreciate it. We don't want anybody to feel like throwing that big number out there. We don't want anybody to feel like, oh, if you can't do that, that you're not doing enough for the campaign. Any contribution in a grassroots campaign is always welcomed. It is appreciated. And if you feel like you're doing what you can do, that's all we're asking for from you. Okay. So $3,300 if you can, but we do want to shout out some names here as we go through this. We often will look at the people who are donating. Those names come through on the chat, and we will give you a shout out here. And I don't know how many people we have watching on the YouTube channel, but usually we have thousands of people watching on our social media streams as this is being live streamed. So if you can give $2, if you can give $10, if you can give $100, $1,000, whatever it can be, this is what the campaign needs right now, but up to a maximum of $3,300. Jill, did you want to say something here?
Yeah, sorry, my system dropped there for a few minutes, so I missed what you had said, Jason, but I'll just underscore that this is where we get over the duopoly by actually funding ourselves. And we have depended on matching funds as a kind of a holdover from maybe a more benign duopoly. Back when there was at least lip service given to a public funding and to some token alternative to corporate control of our campaigns and our political parties. But the hammer has really been brought down on all of that now. And there is a huge effort to basically eliminate public funding. And that will require a fight in and of itself to try to preserve that. But the system is there right now. It does exist. And it's very important that we continue this fight for the Treasury Department, Joe Biden's treasurer, to go ahead and approve the transfer of those funds in time for us to use it. But we can't wait. We have to move ahead. And I don't know if Jason recounted some of the struggles that are underway.
I talked about the legal challenges in Nevada and the likely upcoming legal challenges in Ohio and Washington, and basically anywhere we fight. We are going to be so our ballot access drives right now. We need to get on the ballot in Pennsylvania. We've set our sights on Pennsylvania, Maryland, Connecticut, Virginia. Most of those are coming at the end of the month. We have people working in those states right now. All of the funding that you donate to us right now will go directly to those ballot access drives. And if the Democrats should throw legal challenges down, we will need funding for those legal challenges right now. But we are focused on ballot access. As Jill said, we want to be on the ballot for the maximum number of voters that we can, and not and in a way that they can see Jill's name on the ballot and they can check that box when they go to the polling booth or mail their ballots in, however it happens in their states.
So two other things to mention. One is Oklahoma, where we're trying to raise a ballot access fee of some $35,000, and we still have a little more that we need to raise so that we can be on. And as I understand it, once we're on through paying this fee, the Democrats can't challenge us. They
That's
can't
not
nitpick it.
challengeable, correct?
They can't take
Correct.
us to court over that. So it's another assured gain in our ballot status. And then also in New York, we are fighting in New York. We have already been to court 2 years ago in New York, arguing that what happened would be inevitable. And we've now been proven right, that the ballot law that was kind of adopted under cover of darkness by the former disgraced Governor Cuomo in a emergency COVID budget bill. They snuck it in a way that the public was not aware that their right of choice in future elections was being taken away from them. But that tripling of the requirement really guaranteed that there will be no presidential choices in New York except for billionaire-powered campaigns, Biden, Trump, and RFK. They have
And
fewer
Jill,
presidential choices than any other campaign. Go ahead, Jason.
I just want to give a shout out to Rosalie Gutierrez Ledesma in San Jose, who donated $500 just now. So we appreciate that very much. This is how it happens. We do want those of you who are able to make those larger contributions to do so. I just honestly, I say do not hesitate because the campaign does need the money. We do need it now. Jill mentioned that we are pushing to get on the ballot in Oklahoma. And for those of you who think that $35,000 is a large fee, it does sound like a large sum of money, but it's either pay a $35,000 fee or collect 35,000 signatures, which would not be possible in Oklahoma and also would cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the $35,000 to get on the ballot in Oklahoma is actually a bargain. It doesn't sound like it. That sounds like a big number, but when you weigh it against what we would have to do to actually get petitions gathered in Oklahoma, it's an absolute steal. So we are raising funds for that in Oklahoma, but we do have paid petitioners that we need to take care of in many of the states. Many of them, I should just kind of give a cap of where we are right now. I mean, I think we're on the ballot in 25 states plus the District of Columbia right now. So we also are tomorrow morning submitting. I want to say we don't have a final count right now, but we've estimated about 55,000 signatures that we are submitting in the state of Indiana. Those signatures will be submitted by noon. Hopefully we'll get a final count that we can say to everybody, this is the count that we are submitting. And I want everybody to understand that is they require 37,000 valid signatures in Indiana. And a lot of those we have to pay for because the petitioning process is egregiously difficult. In Indiana, they have 92 counties, and we had to submit all of these signatures to the various counties around the state by the 1st of July. Then we have had to collect them from all of those counties, and then tomorrow we'll be taking them to the Secretary of State in Indianapolis. But I've been out to Indiana twice in the last 3 weeks to make sure that this process is going smoothly and to help volunteers and to do a lot of the driving around the state myself, to pick up those signatures. So it's a difficult process. And we are also involved in a legal challenge in Indiana to try and get that signature count knocked down because it is unconstitutional. It is an unconstitutionally difficult barrier to get over to get on the ballot in Indiana. And so, we have people who we need to pay. Like we have contracts with them that we are going to be paying them, but we need to make sure that we have the money to pay those people who have already done the work. So there's a lot going on. It is expensive, and whatever you can contribute to our campaign right now, if you can give us $1,500, if you can give us $1,000, $750. This is the challenge to Empire. We are going to be the one serious challenge to the Empire. As was noted, RFK may be a challenge to the duopoly, but he is not a challenge to the Empire. And we are here to challenge the Empire. Jill?
Yeah, and add to that, along with Empire goes genocide. And as anyone knows who's been paying attention, RFK does appearances along with Marian Adelson, the major funder of Republicans and Zionists, basically, rabid Zionist, has made appearances with this Rabbi Shmuley, I think his name is, has said that Palestinians are the most pampered people in the world, and basically has supported all of the really outrageous tenets of the Zionist assault. So this is not a peace candidate. This is not someone who's challenging Empire at all. We
And
are the campaign and the only one. And let me just make a couple of very quick thank yous. Ashley
go ahead.
Albra, who contributed 50. Ashtari Brian, I think. Ashtari, who contributed 25. Charles, who contributed 60 on top of having done the full matching funds at 250 earlier. If you've already made matching funds, you can go ahead and contribute beyond the matching funds.
Yeah.
Getting to the match helps, even though we don't know yet for sure, but there still is the option that at the end of the day, we will collect on that. It may not be in time to get on the ballot, but we can use that funding for all kinds of other things, like getting out the vote, for example, like advertising, like social media, like staffing positions, which we are very bare bones at the moment.
Yeah,
so
we are a
whatever you
small
can
staff
contribute.
working 24/7.
We are
really,
working
we are
24/7.
grinding. We are grinding through this. But I want to shout out to Sariana, and I don't know Sariana's last name, but $1,000 contribution. Sariana, thank you so
Oh
much.
my goodness, thank you so
This
much.
is absolutely amazing that people are willing to dig deep and give this. Beckham, I don't know if that's a first name or a last name there, but Beckham, $250. Thank you so much. This is how it needs to be. We need people feeling the inspiration, recognizing the words of our three amazing speakers here that said, please get this campaign. We have to unify against the Empire. We have to unify against genocide in November. So thank you so much. And I want to, if the number had not been spoken earlier about how much the FEC is withholding from us right now, it is $270,000. That is $270,000 that should be in our bank account right now. It is earned money. We followed all of the rules, and isn't this the kick in the pants that when you follow the rules, they're going to steal it from you anyway if they think you're a threat? And that's exactly what they have done right here. And Glenn B, $500. Thank you so much. And I want to give a shout out to Steve Welser, who said he would match a $500 donation. So Steve, we're holding you to that. Amazing. 9,000 signatures collected in Maryland. They need 10,000 valid. And what that means is we got to push it up to about 15,000 signatures. Okay. If you understand the petitioning process, and I know Kshama understands the petitioning process, that even though you're out on the street gathering those signatures, they're not necessarily all going to be valid. A lot of them will get struck because, the various rules in the various states, like, you have to include a zip code. Okay. You didn't put down your zip code and they'll knock you off. And those are the little ticky-tack things that the Democrats are coming after. They're coming after those, like, if it was a matter of what is the will of the signer and the signer is registered, we'd be in the clear. But sometimes there are these ticky-tack details that the Democrats will come after and challenge those signatures. And so we have to take that, whatever the 100% valid rate is, and we basically have to push it to, 50% to 100% above, doubling the number of signatures required because of the attrition rate that is often accompanying the petitioning procedure. So it's ridiculous. And let me make a push. Get your lawmakers to sign on to electronic petitioning, because this handheld petitioning gathering process is absolutely ridiculous. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jill.
Yeah, it's just purposeful political repression is what it is. It's part of the system of trying to make it impossible for challengers to appear on the ballot, which is why we need, political parties that are not in the business of shutting down democracy. And the Democratic Party should be referred to as the anti-democratic party. Every time you say the word, just put in that preface, the anti-democratic party, and that'll set the record straight. I want to be sure that we give a shout out to the pre-pledged matches, which I guess are matching us up to about $6,000, something like that. So an anonymous donor that provided 5,600, that would then cover both the primary and then part of the general election too. So if you're able to contribute for both, you can do that. But one of our anonymous donors did that. Tarek K contributed 200, Cindy R 100, George P 50, and Julian V 20. So thank you so much for all of that.
Yes, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. I'm trying to answer some of the questions in the Q&A as we go along here. And somebody asked about how do I help out in Rhode Island? So Rhode Island is one of the states that we are petitioning in. Their due date isn't until I think somewhere around the end of August. So it's not one of our immediate high priority states compared to the ones that we have to get in by July 29th, a few of them by July 29th, and then a few of them across the next week. But please go to, when you are donating, also check out the ballot access tab, and you can look and see if your state is already, we already have ballot access in your state, or if we are petitioning in your state. If you see a yellow state, your state is a yellow state, that means we are still working for access in that state. If the map was 100% updated. So, you'll see, again, Virginia, Maryland, Connecticut, Delaware, New Hampshire, Vermont, any state that you see that is yellow, Tennessee, we are still actively working to get signatures. Please reach out to the contact there. Reach out to our ballot access director, Rick Lass at jillstein2024.com. We will get you in touch with your state leads. We will get petitions in your hand. Just some states have particular rules you got to follow. So there's a training video, watch the training video, go out there and do it correctly. But yes, absolutely. If you can get to work in your state, that is actively collecting. Minnesota is another one. Please do so, because every signature that you collect for us saves us anywhere from $6 to $12, depending upon what state you're in. So it is in a way, it's a financial contribution to have you volunteer for us doing that. But financial contributions right now will help us hire people in those states to get us over the top. Jill?
So a quick shout out to Grace Cahill, who's going to be helping with signature collection in Vermont. If you are, going to be assisting with the petition drive, definitely, let us know in the chat as well, because we want to give you a big thank you for that. I want to also note that there are a couple of first-time voters, or maybe more than a couple, but at least a few comments in the chat that some people will be voting for the first time. So thank you for starting off on the right footing here, and keep it up. Do not vote for the Empire, even though they tell you you have no choice. Thank you for knowing from the outset that you do have a choice. You can say no to Empire. And I want to mention that we are here in Milwaukee, both for the Republican National Convention, for the protests that will be going on. We've also been here for the People's First convention, which has been really, really wonderful. And there are so many. This is a meeting of former gang members, people who were formerly incarcerated, people who are very involved now in the movement to transcend community violence and to overcome it. And it includes a county commissioner. It includes lots of the people who are working on community assistance, on mentoring young people, on mentoring people when they're coming out of prison, and helping people get not back to a decent life, but achieve a decent life for the first time, and to overcome a system that just disadvantages, poor and working people, and people of color in particular. So it has been so amazing to be here. But among other things, we've been told by many people who are here, and this is a political empowerment conference. So it's not only about how does the community help itself and assert its power to overcome violence and disinvestment and lack of education and, all the things that are inflicted on low income and disempowered communities, but it's also about how do we claim political power. And so they've had several independent presidential candidates or vice presidential candidates here addressing the conference. And we've heard from many people that because of our campaign, they will be registering to vote for the absolute first time. And to me, this is transformational. This is like, it's 30% roughly of eligible voters do not vote. It was like 66% voted in the year 2000, in 2020 rather, 60%. Just over, like 66%. So it's about 2/3 of voters, but it was 1/3 of eligible voters who had nothing to get out and vote for good reason. They didn't know that there were alternatives to the Hillary and
The establishment doesn't want people to know. That's one of the
Don't
reasons
want you
they're
to
trying
know
to
at
silence our
all.
voice. And Jill,
So that is why we need to be on the ballot. And to me, this is the ultimate affirmation, when that huge voting bloc is starting to say, hey, not only am I going to vote, but I'm going to get the word out. I'm really going to go to work for this because I own this campaign, and this is my future. So to my mind, this is just like a total validation of everything that we're doing here together. Go ahead, Jason.
yeah, I wanted to say one thing, and I've dropped a link to the People's First Convention in the chat a couple of times now. I'm going to do it one more time here, and you guys can see what they're all about. But there is something very poignant about this organization of people who come from communities who have had state violence done against them, and they are not coming back with violence. They are coming back with unity. They are coming back with community. They are coming back with love. They are coming back with justice. And that is, that's why we feel such a connection with the People's First Convention. We met their leadership when we were in Chicago about a month and a half ago. I think it was. When would that have been? That would have been I can't even remember. But it was one of those instant meetings. We sat down, we were all on the same page, and their mission is our mission. And they are fully against the genocide in Gaza, but they are also against the ongoing systemic genocide against their own communities. And it is no hyperbole to call it what it is. That the Black community, that the Native American community have been undergoing systemic genocides in this country since its founding, and we have to recognize that. And as a point of healing, to move together for a better future, not just in this country, but to then export that around the world instead of exporting all the violence around the world, to be an example of communities coming together for justice. That is what we need to be on this campaign and for the future, for here and for the world. So that is what you're donating towards. That is the challenge to the empire that we need to put on the table. Jill?
Yeah, I want to mention one other word about, forgiveness and restorative justice, which this community is really practicing. And the people, our supporters here, are major movers of a real a real practice, a real world practice of restorative justice. And there's a longer story that goes with this, but we'll be bringing some of the folks from that community out because it is such a inspiring response to the violence that afflicts us, the violence evident in the assassination attempt at Donald Trump yesterday. And there have been so many, such kind of soul searching about what do we do with this? Where do we go from here? But what we're seeing right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, one of the poorest neighborhoods, one of the most violent neighborhoods, one of the most incarcerated communities across the nation, how they are responding to it is just such an incredible inspirational example. And it reminds me of a conversation that we had with some wonderful supporters that we met from the Arab American community, actually Palestinian folks that we met at the libertarian debate. They had come to see us. And that was quite an interesting experience in itself. And what this one person had said to us, he had been imprisoned and tortured for 2 years himself before he was able to get out.
At the age of 17, at the age of 17.
Yeah. And he himself now was explaining that he doesn't harbor resentment or hostility, that he has forgiven. I see this over and over again. I think so many of us do, from people in Gaza and Palestinians in general, that they have been so horribly abused and tormented, yet they are miraculously able to let go of that. And we see that in their practices and in their coalition building. And it's really quite a wonder to behold. I also want to mention, in that debate that we did with Free and Equal, with the other independent candidates, a vote is being taken. I think it hasn't closed yet.
Not
As
yet.
far as I know, it is still open, but it's going to be closing very soon. Last I saw, we were leading, which is quite remarkable. We were leading among the 3 candidates, and I want to encourage everybody to go to freeandequal.org, and you can view the debate there, and you can also vote. So please get out and vote, because it's important. There are many libertarians actually who share many of our core values, including independence from corporations and big money. And again, we are the only campaign that is offering a way forward on so many of the issues that libertarians also care about. So I'd say, get there and vote. Your political party doesn't matter whatsoever, but if you can go to that website and vote, it would be really wonderful. And then finally, I want to note also that we have a hard out tonight at 9:40. 9:40, is that Eastern?
The Eastern time.
9:40 Eastern.
Yeah, 9:40
Yeah.
Eastern.
So that's in about 10 minutes.
10
so
minutes.
I really want to encourage everybody to bite the bullet right now, seize the moment right now. We have to stand up and fight empire. Don't be shy. Don't take your time here. Really, this is time. Empire is doubling down, and we are rising up, and we need to do that together. We're all going to extraordinary lengths. We are all being tested right now by this genocide and by the fascism that surrounds this genocide and this effort to shut us down, to shut down political opposition, to shut down freedom of speech, to shut down the right to protest, to shut down students, young people who are really leading the charge here. We need to stand up, and part of this fight, a really critical part of the fight, is funding our ballot access drive so that we can have a vote. We can actually bring the challenge to power. As Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. That demand has to be on the ballot for us to move forward. So please make whatever contribution you can, and do it now while we can still collect that. You can do it after this gathering as well, but it will be shared and will help inspire others to likewise stand up if you make that contribution now. Thank you so much.
I want to note Robin Farron just donated $25 with a message. Love you, Jill. Thank you so much. Ali has committed to donate $100 now and every month through the remainder of the campaign. Zaib, I think I got the name right. Zaib And this is, I do want to highlight Z because Zabe has been unemployed and can only donate $25. But I'll tell you what, don't feel like a $25 contribution is not enough. If that's what you can do, that's what you can do. We'd say the same thing about $5. If all you were going to be able to donate was $5, then that's what you can do. This is all like no harm, no foul. Whatever, we're not looking to bankrupt anybody here by saying give more than you're able to. This is just a community effort to help support this campaign through basically an empire imposed coffer drain is really what they've done for us. Again, we should have $270,000 in the bank right now that we would be paying for Oklahoma with, $35,000 that we would be paying for all of our ballot access in, as I mentioned, Maryland, Virginia, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania. And so, it was noted to me by our fundraising director, Georgia, that we've got upwards of 5,000 people who have been watching this on Twitter and YouTube. And we've got almost 170 people in the room right now. And if everybody donated $10, we would have our Oklahoma fee covered and we could secure that tomorrow. I mean, but that's how critical it is. The deadline is midnight tomorrow night, midnight on Monday. And if the money doesn't come in, we don't get Oklahoma. That's it. It's done. So if you are Alice Slater, $25, thank you so much. Just once again, an amazing amount of gratitude to the people who came in, Susan, and it's the first time I've heard Susan speak, except for one time on Democracy Now. By the way, hassle Democracy Now. If you guys have a line, tag them on Twitter. Tell them to have Jill on. They are avoiding Jill like the plague right now, and I worry it's because they're worried about this whole lesser of two evils, and we got to vote for Biden. But Jill has earned a spot on Democracy Now, and Amy Goodman really should be hosting her for this. I mean, I think she's hosted Cornell twice already in the last few months. So that if you want to put some pressure on people, put some pressure on Democracy Now. That would be fantastic for us. But again, we're going to close down in about 5 minutes. The donate button is always open on the website. So please, when you're able to, if you're not able to tonight, please tomorrow or the next day. I know for me, payday is tomorrow. So that's when I do my donations, is when I get a paycheck. So please consider that tomorrow, and just know that our needs are great, but the mission is also a mission of justice, a mission of peace, and a mission to stop genocide. So I appreciate everybody tonight. Kshama and Janan, thank you so much for being here. Jill?
Yeah, likewise. What an inspirational crew tonight. Really, really wonderful. I'm going to go back and listen again, just to reap the the inspiration of all of those speakers. It was really wonderful. I want to give
a $1,000 donation. I just want to have to jump in. Jacob Riskin, $1,000 tonight. Thank you so much, Jacob. You're sustaining us. And so put it out there once again to everybody. Please give what you're able.
And a big thank you to Brittany J for, I think it was 200. It went by quickly. It was 200 to 250. And for Benjamin Wright for $100. And for $40 from, let's see, it just ran by me here. But everyone, whether it was large or small, okay, it was Paul Haggard. Thank you, Paul, for your donation. Thank you to everyone, whether it's large or small. It helps. And if you, if you've contributed all you can at $15 or $30, whatever, you can also ask your friends, your family, because often they're struggling with the same things that you are, and to encourage them to also throw something into the pot, you can basically enlarge the impact of your donations. So, I'll just say that this is where we're counting down here to the last 3 minutes. So anyone who can throw something in here just as a final offering, it would be really wonderful. Steve Welser says he's signing up, or is he suggesting? I guess he's suggesting to others to sign up to donate for whatever you donated. See if you can do that every month.
Yeah,
oh, and
monthly
Madeline
contributions are
Hoffman-
always very helpful to us. Thank you.
Madeline Hoffman is saying that Chase Oliver has pulled ahead in this poll now, so be sure you go to Free and Equal and cast your vote.
Freeandequal.org.
freeandequal.org.
Yep.
Great.
And you know, I just want to say that the you know, RFK was on the debate stage prior to the actual debate, refused to debate, and he actually got called out in the middle of his speech. Somebody stood up and said, "Debate? Do you need to debate?" And then you know, so there was a chorus chanting, "Debate, debate, debate." And RFK gave what I consider to be a very weak response and said, I don't want to debate my friends. I want to debate the enemy. You know, so it's a kind of a supposition there that we're friends at this point because, you know, we're all competing. And I think it was a very, you know, weird dodge at what we really should be doing here, which is making sure that all of the independent candidates get to be heard in the same forum and people can weigh them side by side. And RFK clearly does not want that to happen. He is in support of the genocide. And so I'm saying that to people out there who are watching in social media space. If you're thinking about supporting RFK, but you do not know that he is in support of the genocide in Palestine, you really need to weigh that right now, because there are anti-war, anti-genocide candidates. RFK is not one of them.
Great. And I think at this point, we are going to just say a final thank you to everyone for coming out tonight, for donating, for supporting the campaign, for spreading the word, for the only anti-genocide, anti-war, climate emergency, pro-worker campaign. This is our only choice on the ballot, our only chance to really push back against a world in which the climate is in crisis and melting down, in which working people are struggling with crushing inequality, in which half of our national resources are dedicated to the endless war machine, which is reaching its ultimate expression right now in the genocide. There are 500,000 to 1 million people who are said by the UN and its various bodies to be likely to die this month from starvation, which has really reached critical impact right now. So we need to think of this campaign with that urgency. This is the one tool we can exert right now without getting our heads bashed in, without going to jail for long periods of time. This is something we can do without incurring the actual physical violence of the security state against us. We can stand up and get our campaign on the ballot right now in one state after another by raising the money to continue this fight and conduct this fight. This is, I think, our most powerful current tool for staying the hand of Joe Biden, who is giving permission, who is arming this genocide that will take 500,000 lives, maybe 1 million lives from starvation this month. It is incredible. I grew up in the Jewish community after the Holocaust, like within a couple of years after the Holocaust. I was born in 1950, and it was very much an issue in the Jewish community. How do we survive? How do we live in a world that has just subjected our people to genocide? And the peace that we made with that was because we will not allow genocide to happen again, because we are holding people accountable who were bystanders to genocide. Genocide is not only the responsibility of those who conduct it, it is the responsibility of bystanders. That meant within the Jewish community, we were saying that it's not okay for genocide to happen to anybody. It's not just Jews that should be concerned about this. It's everyone. This is a genocide on all of our hands. This blood is on all of our hands, and we have to do what we can to stop it. We have political power. As Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without that demand. We are that demand. And as Alice Walker said, when we get together, we are absolutely unstoppable together. We can stop genocide. We can dismantle empire. And we can do some of that immediately. All it takes is a phone call to stop the genocide. And we need to make Joe Biden feel that heat, Joe Biden or whoever else it is. And we maximize that by getting on the ballot right now. And your donations make that possible. So thank you to everyone so much for all your wonderful work, for leading the charge for an America and a world that works for all of us. Thank you so much to Susan Abulhawa. Thank you to Janan and to Kshama for being incredible, inspirational speakers tonight. Thank you, Jason, for being your usual inspired, unstoppable self. And, you know, together we will be unstoppable. And let's do what we need to do to reclaim the future that works for all of us. Thank you
We're
all
gonna do a
so
couple
very
of
much.
quick shout outs before we go and close it
Okay,
down.
great.
Viviana, thank you. Bo Brumley, thank you very much. And finally, Melanie, a $500 donation to close us out. Very much appreciated. Again, tell your friends, tell your family, go out on the streets and fight for this, collect signatures for us. Check out the ballot access page, encourage other people to donate. You know, as as Gaza goes, we all go, and we have to fight this. We have to fight this with every fiber of our being.
Together we are unstoppable.
Absolutely.
You all so